and that's fine as well. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. We've done this, it looks like you can see my screen now, yeah? We've done this process multiple times now. Like I said, right, the science behind it says just the more like interaction, the more experience you have with a new vocabulary, the more you'll understand it in that, you know, culture. Obviously for us, it's the United States. Anyway, so that's the goal here, is to learn new vocabulary, phrases, sentence structure, anything that might be confusing or doesn't make sense. We can talk about it, have a conversation. You can ask things like, can it be used in this way? Or I've heard that word be used this way. What does it mean in this context? Or, you know, simple things too, like what does that mean? Obviously that's helpful as well. But you can also try and figure out like what, you know, what cultural bearing does it have? And anyways, so feel free to ask any of those questions. This passage I got from, I'm trying to remember, I think an SAT practice test. I know some of you guys are trying to prepare for the SAT and y'all are just so smart and advanced. I'm trying to find high level English text, so it should be near college level, if not college level. Anyway, so it's an excerpt from the book called The Awakening. I do not know that book. I've never heard of it before, by Kate Chopin. That was published in 1899, so quite a ways ago. So hopefully there'll be some interesting vocabulary that we can see here. One point I do want to make is it says Mademoiselle, and I'm just going to pronounce this Rise. I have no idea if that's correct. I think it probably is. That's like a French term, Mademoiselle, right? It just means like Miss, unmarried lady. So that's what that is. I think everything else we can talk about, but that's like a French term. That's not English. We don't say Mademoiselle in English. Okay, so we'll just read through. I'll read through the whole passage and you're just listening. You're thinking about, does this make sense? Where am I confused? Maybe there's a specific word, maybe it's a part of the passage, a whole sentence. You're thinking, could I use that this way? How could I incorporate this in my vocabulary, right? You're trying to just deepen your knowledge base of that vocabulary so that you just continue to grow in your English. Then we'll go back through paragraph by paragraph, and if you have questions, we'll go through the questions. So this first time, we'll just kind of read through it. Would you like to hear Mademoiselle Rice play? Asked Robert, coming out on the porch where she was. Of course Edna would like to hear Mademoiselle Rice play, but she feared it would be useless to entreat her. I'll ask her, he said. I'll tell her that you want to hear her. She likes you. She will come. He turned and hurried away to one of the far cottages where Mademoiselle Rice was shuffling away. She was dragging a chair in and out of her room, and at intervals objecting to the crying of a baby, which a nurse in the adjoining cottage was endeavoring to put to sleep. She was a disagreeable little woman, no longer young, who had quarreled with almost everyone, owing to a temper which was self-assertive and a disposition to trample upon the rights of others. Robert prevailed upon her without any too great difficulty. She entered the hall with him during a lull in the dance. She made an awkward, imperious little bow as she went in. She was a homely woman, with a small, weazened face and body and eyes that glowed. She had absolutely no taste in dress, and wore a batch of rusty black lace with a bunch of artificial violets pinned to the side of her hair. Ask Mrs. Pontellier, I think that's another French name, what she would like to hear me play, she requested of Robert. She sat perfectly still before the piano, not touching the keys, while Robert carried her message to Edna at the window. A general air of surprise and genuine satisfaction fell upon everyone as they saw the pianist enter. There was a settling down and a prevailing air of expectancy everywhere. Edna was a trifle embarrassed at being thus signaled out for the imperious little woman's favor. She would not dare to choose, and begged that Mademoiselle Rice would please herself in her selections. Edna was what she herself was. Let me start that sentence over. Edna was what she herself called very fond of music. Musical strains, well rendered, had a way of evoking pictures in her mind. She sometimes liked to sit in the room in the mornings when Madame Ratignolle, we'll say that's how it's pronounced, played or practiced. Just another point, interjection, Madame, that's another French term, right? Like Mrs. is what it'd be in English. So that's French, not English. One piece, which that lady played, Edna had entitled Solitude. It was a short, plaintive minor strain. The name of the piece was something else, but she called it Solitude. When she heard it, there came before her imagination the figure of a man standing beside a desolate rock on the seashore. His attitude was one of hopeless resignation as he looked toward a distant bird winging its flight away from him. Another piece called to her mind a dainty young woman clad in an empire gown, taking mincing dancing steps as she came down a long avenue between tall hedges. Again, another reminded her of children at play, and still another of nothing on earth but a demure lady stroking a cat. The very first chords which Mademoiselle Rice struck upon the piano sent a keen tremor down Mrs. Pontellier's spinal column. Sorry. It was not the first time she had heard an artist at the piano. Perhaps it was the first time she was ready. Perhaps the first time her being was tempered to take an impression of the abiding truth. She waited for the material pictures which she thought would gather and blaze before her imagination. She waited in vain. She saw no pictures of solitude, of hope, of longing, or of despair. But the very passions themselves were aroused within her soul, swaying it, lashing it, as the waves daily beat upon her splendid body. She trembled, she was choking, and the tears blinded her. Mademoiselle had finished. She arose, and bowing her stiff, lofty bow, she went away, stopping for neither thanks nor applause. As she passed along the gallery, she patted Edna upon the shoulder. "Well, how did you like my music?" she asked. The young woman was unable to answer. She pressed the hand of the pianist convulsively. Mademoiselle Rice perceived her agitation and even her tears. She patted her again upon the shoulder as she said, "You are the only one worth playing for. Those others? Bah!" And she went shuffling and sidling on down the gallery toward her room. I think that's the end. Okay, so we'll go back through. I'll go ahead and read this first paragraph again, trying to see if I can pull it all in one go. It looks like I can. And then